Hi, guys. Well, firstly, thank you for being here, and thanks everyone for being here as well. Roger, it was a great keynote and sort of leads into where we're trying to take this discussion. So I'd like to get right in. So please remember just to throw your questions out, as I'd like to keep it quite fluid as well. So just going on the trends, obviously we looked at sort of the future of e-commerce and the types of trends that are out there. But what I wanted to touch on further is what sort of industry-specific ones are coming up in Asia? I've seen subscription models growing quite a bit in the US. However, it seems like within Asia, your Bella Box, your coffee subscriptions, or things such as Taste Guru from overseas aren't really getting as much traction here. So I'd love to get your insights on that.
I mean, I guess since we're in beauty and there is a lot of buzz around beauty subscription models, particularly out of the US and Europe, it's something that we certainly thought about. However, I mean, just from our standpoint, I think in Southeast Asia, you still have an issue of disposable income. So for us, when we think about Luxola versus, sort of all the other beauty box type situations that are in Southeast Asia, a lot of the women that we talk to and the customers that we speak with would rather spend, if they're going to spend $20 or $40 a month on beauty, they would rather, choose what they're going to get. So I think it's certainly something that comes with a rise in disposable income. And I don't think Southeast Asia is maybe the most suitable place for subscription-based models yet.
From my perspective, I think such kind of niche e-commerce model has yet to taken off in Southeast Asia yet, because one of the main reason I think, like, the as you may know, the quite traditional e-commerce model, including like marketplace, B2C, group buying, things like that, is still struggling in proving its own model in the region. It's still in its early stage. So until from my point of view, until those traditional e-commerce model has taken off, those kinds of the next business e-commerce business model will follow on. Similar, unlike in Western country, in the more developed market, as we may see, on the next business model, it's kind of follow on after on the traditional e-commerce model has already quite very developed and very popular. Before those niche model has it is kind of matter of user behavior, the development level of the market has matured at a certain level before the niche model can develop. Such kind of situation has yet available in Southeast Asia.
And so for us, it's pretty much like a subscription model. Okay, and in that people usually buy their groceries, they buy the same things over and over again. So we have the concept of a shopping list, which is pretty much, you're able to just buy the same things you've bought in the past and reorder. Locking people into that subscription, we're not sure if that's really necessary. It's just as easy and almost as automated to just let them reorder from their list. Pretty convenient that way. Amazon's done the subscribe and save model where you can save on a product because you're locking into that brand, and actually the brands provide that subsidization. So that's interesting if that might work here.
I guess for Asia, the e-commerce sector will be like Europe or US, boils down to two alphabet, B2B, B2C, C2B, C2C, right? So that's essentially the two alphabet you must remember. So all those things about subscription, all this personalization, online, offline, all these other things, it's just a variation as far as I'm concerned. Ultimately, it's what trying to do is what Roger was saying just earlier. It's about creating more selection, creating convenient to consumer or business, and creating the hooks that catch the buyer, ultimately getting them to pay for it.
Okay, great. So touching on the personalization, but also the retail and online, the offline-online integration. In your keynote, you mentioned that what's going to happen to the shopping malls. So in Asia, personally, I mean, I think a lot of as you said, it's a pastime, right? So how do you think Omnichannel is changing the space? Because for trends within 2014, 2015, that's quite a big, upcoming area. And how do you see that within what you're doing and the region as well? So do you want to answer first, Roger?
Sure. I'm pretty opinionated on this, so I think Omnichannel isn't so great. I think that, models like Zappos in the US, even for fashion, right, or Tate & Tonic here, you can get your stuff delivered to your house, try it on in the comfort of your home, and send back what you don't like for free. And so that's much better experience. And also, not having to travel to the store and getting it delivered to your door is much more convenient, in my opinion. So I think, that omni-channel going to pick things up or click and collect isn't really as powerful, especially when e-commerce companies get better at same-day delivery and instant gratification, because that's really why I guess you would go to the store, is that you need it now, but when the e-commerce companies are able to actually provide it now, then why would you go?
So I guess just to cut you off for a little bit, with regards to Asia, though, there's some of the emerging markets that we may have difficulties with regards to logistics and deliveries. So how would that, the omni-channel allows individuals in Asia to go into the retail spaces, but then perhaps or order online, then pick it up in the retail space. So in Vietnam, Binh, I guess you may see something growing in that.
In Vietnam, it is now, the situation, the trend actually has not been, very clear yet. There are still many companies who are, going different ways to prove their own model. And actually, at this moment, I see there is a mix, coexisting between the, online commerce company and omni-channel company, and also that there is even the phenomenon that the online e-commerce company is also trying to open offline store in order to support their online activities, and also the brick and mortar retailers like supermarket. Recently, the one brand name what they call Big C. Which is similar to NTU FairPrice here. They also open an e-commerce website called C Discount. They focus on promoting the discounted item in their chain of supermarket to sell online. So there are two flow of the brick and mortar. The brick and mortar company is expanding to online. And also the online commerce company is also trying to use the offline channel in order to support their online business. Either way, at this moment, it's not clear yet which model will be right. Time will tell.
Great. No? Okay. So that brings me into the question with regards to the value of brand. So, in the Asian context, brand is extremely important, building credibility and trust. So what is the value of brand in e-commerce? And I'd like to start with you, Lex, because I know with Luxola, you've built a very strong brand. And within the beauty industry in Asia, it is also a very difficult industry to break through. And then sort of get everyone else's perspective on how do you build a brand and how have you built a brand within that and create meaningful connections in order to build more sustainable businesses.
Yeah, I mean, I guess our take with Luxola has always been to focus on customer service, delivery, content, product selection to really differentiate our brand from things like marketplaces or e-commerce players who are solely differentiated on price. So we've really focused on the customer experience to create the brand, and I think so far that's been a pretty winning strategy for us. I think Roger and us are Roger and I are the only people that do same-day delivery in Singapore, and that seems to be working for us and creating a lot of loyalty with our customers. But I think, putting service first, at least for Luxola, has been a pretty winning brand strategy so far. In terms of beauty, I think we're now looking at, we're taking all our data, we're looking at what our customers are demanding, which, we're maybe not providing yet, and we'll be moving more into white labeling our own products and creating, brands, whether the brand is called Luxola or not, but creating brands that meet customer needs, that we're able to identify, in a data-driven way. So.
I just say, I think Luxola is doing a great job. We learn a lot about branding from you guys. I think, in creating your own differentiated product offering, brand is important in getting that trust with customers. When we started, for example, people wouldn't pay with their credit cards. We had to have cash on delivery because they just weren't sure. They didn't know what RedMart was and whether we were actually going to deliver the stuff that they ordered, so they didn't want to pay in advance. So it's a lot about trust, and since then we've gotten rid of cash on delivery. Established enough trust with our customers that they know they're going to get what they want, and if any problem, they're going to easily resolve it. And I think I just wanted to share a quote that I heard. I forgot where I heard it. Is a brand is not what you say to me; it's what you did for me. So I think your brand building has to be about great customer service, providing on-time, accurate, reliable delivery, putting your customer first, and that establishes the trust that you need.
The major difference between retailer and e-commerce, I think Alexis and Roger is a very good example of that. If you really analyze it shake down to bottom of it, is that one is about rental. Retail shops about rental. You presume rental, people will walk in. E-commerce presumably is about user acquisition. How do you bring the user in, and how do you attract the user and stay within your website? Not different from a retailer, and plus a logistic issue. So I think that if you analyze everything and then compare across the board, that points out the two issues. Which is why online e-commerce branding become a much more important issue, because your consumer doesn't really walk into your mall. They walk into your site in 1 second and they'll disappear in the next second. How do you retain them, like what Roger and Alexis is trying to do? We're trying to improve that, and ultimately how you deliver the product to them cost effectively. I think that's a problem. That's a challenge for e-commerce company.
So a bit talking about brand. So we all know that brand is meaning trust, and brand is meaning bringing about the customer, and also brand mean retaining the customer. I have some of my experience, because I had started up almost nearly 10 brands for e-commerce in Vietnam for the last almost 10 years. As a startup, from the zero ground base, I want to share just some kind of trick to you as a startup companies. Try try to take every chance to explore yourself to the public, and also take every chance to attach your brand onto other bigger brands, like what I mean, standing on the giant's shoulder. So for example, from my case, when I try all my best. For example, when I launched our local our marketplace in Vietnam, after 3 years, I try my best to even accept many bad clause, or even not disadvantaged clause in order to attach our own brand with eBay. We co-branded with eBay back in 2008. Yeah, but since then, that is kind of one of the very fast way to promote your brand and to build the trust for your own brand, to take the advantage from the giants. And also later on, our payment platform, we also have a kind of commercial partnership with PayPal. We launched, we announced that kind of thing. And also recently, last 2 years, we launched what they call a payment a shipping gateway. We also try to to sign up a deal with one of the largest shipping companies in Vietnam, and such kind of activities would very quickly build up your brand especially for the startup project.
Yeah, I think those are some very valid points, with regards to co-partnering, and you've done that very well. It does help to have the scalability for e-commerce platforms. So I guess going into taking one of the questions with regards to payment systems, which seems to be a hot topic, especially within the region. Hua Binh, you have your own sort of payment system. But it'd be quite interesting to see what sort of emerging payment platforms there are that's changing the sector within the region. And with one of the questions, it was how will innovative payment systems like Bitcoin influence the Asian commerce scene? And do you see Western payment systems like PayPal and credit cards holding sway over the Asian market? So I'd be quite interested to hear your takes on that.
Payment, payment is very interesting. So I have experience about the payment as well. A bit about my background. I started up one of the first e-commerce marketplace in Vietnam back in 2005, and in 2009 I've started one of the first the PayPal model e-wallet online payment service in Vietnam, started from zero. So I had some quite interesting experience with that. So at the beginning, when I started up our payment gateway, the Alipay and PayPal model e-wallet payment platform, during the first 3 years, right? I was, we was very hardly promoted it with e-commerce payment. Trying to attack it on the as a payment option on the e-commerce website, things like that. So far so good. It has developed quite well, but actually we have realized that online payment, or what I call pre-money payment, where buyer pay first to the sellers, actually is more suitable at this stage to such kind of service like digital goods payment, game payment, booking payment, subscription payment is developed very well in such kind of industry. For e-commerce payment like physical goods, buying and selling of the physical goods, the adoption is quite slow. And the key reason takeaway is the buyer, they don't find online payment is convenient enough and safety enough. Why? Firstly in terms of convenience, the buyer, when they pay something for online, they must have credit card or local bank card. In Vietnam, the local ATM card can be used to pay online as well. But before you can do that, you have to come to the bank desk to sign up a form, right? And also you must know how to process all the way of doing online payment. You must know how to get the one-time password and 3D secure password and all those things. So it requires the buyer must have a lot of knowledge. Okay, and number 2 is about the safetyness. Okay, so what if I pay first and the seller that does not ship me the items, especially for domestic card payment? So it's very, very, very difficult to claim, right? And I also have to experience a very painful process of claiming, and most of the time I lose my money. Okay, so that is the painful of online payment for e-commerce in Southeast Asia in general, and in Vietnam in particular. So actually, later on we find out that there is another form of payment which is very highly appreciated by the user, and it also developed very fast, what they call COD, cash on delivery.
So I think on that note, I'd like to also ask Alexis, only because I know you're in multiple parts of the region, and how do you deal with payment systems in all the different parts? on the efficiency side, but just in different markets, you have cash on delivery, vouchers, etc.
Yeah, so Luxola operates 48 different payment systems across 9 different markets. So it's pretty tedious. I think that payment is a huge space for anybody who wants to tackle it in Southeast Asia. I won't make any massive statements about things like Bitcoin, but I do think that addressing ways for, let's say, cash users to get online and transact payments easier is something that is really, really exciting for us. So I'd love to see things like Bitcoin become more mainstream, because it is a major problem for our shoppers. Cash on delivery is a huge portion of our customers, even still here in Singapore. But I think you just have to kind of, if you're looking at it from the e-commerce perspective, you have to roll with whatever is most popular in every country, right? So in Indonesia, bank transfer just dominates. But again, there's so much room for somebody to come in there and make that facilitation between the bank and the e-commerce platform a smoother one. We would love for someone to do that. If anyone's doing that, please let me know. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of room for payment innovation in Southeast Asia.
Great. And Keylok, did you have anything to add from more of an investment side? Is there anything you're seeing within the emerging markets?
No, I think Alexis and Roger, they all probably don't talk about it, but this is probably one of the secret sauce. Payment is a major issue e-commerce company. E-commerce usually don't tell you, but it's a major issue. I'm sure some of you were aware in China in 2009, when there's very little credit card and very little payment solution, all the e-commerce company went cowboys and they said let's go COD, cash on delivery, which I think Vietnam is trying it now. They will discover 35% of people will return the product. Because COD, there's a thing called remorse. After you buy it, the guy comes, you say, actually, I don't want it. So you don't pay the guy, the product is returned. The 35% return rate will kill the company. So that very quickly in China, they learn it. They say, no, you either pay in advance or you give me your credit card. Otherwise, I'm not going to give you the product at all. So that payment is a major issue for e-commerce company, because you don't see the guy. Virtually, you don't know what he's doing. And in Southeast Asia, the one more problem, which is a lot of problem, is fraud rate is very high. Let's not get into which country. There's a lot of country in Southeast Asia, the credit card fraud is very high. So if you are not careful, you take a credit card from a particular place, you just go ahead and ship a product over there. That will be the last time you see the product, and you will never collect the money anymore.
Right. Roger, did you have anything to add? Or
I think.
Okay. Sure. So I want to take a question from the floor, because it's got 34 votes and it's really interesting. Where does the local Singapore hawker sit in the future of e-commerce? I think that's fascinating, especially with the love for food here. So Keylok, maybe you want to answer that.
Well, hawker is, as you guys probably know, this is our version of food. I think the issue of food or e-commerce actually is very difficult, because food, you need to be fresh, you need to deliver it, on time. I'm sure some of you are aware, the Pizza Huts, I think, in some country experiment on the so-called guaranteed delivery in 20 minutes or 25 minutes. End up causing a lot of accident. And now they more or less, they say, I will deliver it when I get delivered. I think the issue is always down to issue about how fast you can deliver, how fresh the food is. I would love to see this happen in e-commerce, but I think it's going to be a while. Somebody needs to solve the issue about how to keep the food fresh.
Okay, great. So one of the things that I also wanted to touch on is, some statistics and insights in e-commerce in Asia, because the market is still underdeveloped and there's really not as much information out there. And for those of you who are looking at starting e-commerce platforms, are there any sort of insights you can share on customer buying behaviors, personalization, and how do you make decisions into entering into emerging markets or new markets? So yeah.
We only operate in Singapore, so I think Alexis will be.
Yeah, and it kind of maybe ties with one of these questions I'm seeing about, sort of it's heavily competitive. I mean, I think I guess a lot of people ask us about e-commerce, and I think that while the space is extremely exciting in Southeast Asia, maybe there is a bit of a misunderstanding about how much money it takes to operate e-commerce. So I'm sure Roger and I will happily tell you that it's not, if you want to be a multi-brand retailer like Roger and I, it's not something that unless you're ridiculously lucky, that you're going to be able to do with $100,000 worth of investment and scale to the size that, it's taken us the past 3 years to get. It takes money. If you're looking to do something with a small amount of investment, you're probably better off creating a niche product, right? Going the way of like a Bonobos or something like that, where you can really identify a market, develop a product that has, a built-in audience, and push it through an e-commerce platform like a Shopify or something like that. Looking at building logistics infrastructure, our own backend, our own fulfillment, payment, and bringing on inventory, holding that, it's not a cheap game. So I would say if you're looking at it, it's something you want to do. Be prepared to have to go down the road of fundraising that e-commerce inevitably comes along with. And if that's not what you want to do, then I would look at a different startup.
Yeah, I think as e-commerce founders are a percentage of time is spent fundraising. So if you're a founder, CEO, and you want to do that, be prepared.
I think, yeah,
pick
that's
something other than groceries and beauty.
Yeah, a very good point, because it is low margins. So from the investment side, I'd be quite interested as well, just to see what do you look for when you're investing, and what sort of startups are you looking at the moment? And I know you've also invested in, or Vertex has invested in Rebonds. So with the flash sales, as well as Roger and Alexis, you've got a question here which also touches on the investments, and how do you consider scaling up? So Kilok, maybe you start.
Well, it's a tough question. I think it's it's all about how big the market is. I think e-commerce give you a lot of imagination. Everybody believe that it can replace everything. So that's something that we are easy to get over it. But e-commerce business actually a lot of times down to actually the team. A lot of times you get very comfortable with the team. And ultimately, as what both of them have mentioned, is about money. Sometimes it's good team, good market, but then you realize that it's going to need $100 million to get there. You probably tell yourself that this is probably not the business that you want to get into. So there's all this criteria you have to go through it. Sometimes you just can't get into the business because you know that it's going to require a lot more money.
Any other inputs?
I'd say in this market, a lot of people ask me, how did we raise the money? We went, first to people who trust us, some of our INSEAD professors, where we got our MBA. It found it easy to, get their stamp of approval and validation before going to friends and family, because the friends and family is kind of an emotional, charged conversation. And then, when they know that someone like a professor who wouldn't invest unless they really believed in you has already kind of put that stamp of credibility on, it makes it easier. We had to go with a lot of angel investors. I think seed round and Series A here is more like Series B and C in other places. So we had to have angels who've been willing to put forth that capital and put their money at risk. And fortunately, we have some great angels that have scaled e-commerce scaled their companies before, like Toivo from Skype and Eduardo from Facebook, and that has given us enough of room to get the traction we need to attract capital from the larger institutions. So.
Okay, great. So coming back onto data and some statistics and that sort of stuff. There's a question that says, how do you balance customization of online activities with oncoming policy on personal data protection? So I have a dream that it'd be great if something like RedMart would be able to notify me every 30 days that I've run out of toothpaste or toilet paper and automatically pre-order them with the click of a button. But obviously that does have some issues when it comes down to personal data as well. So yeah, how would you like to answer that?
Yeah, so it's a delicate situation. I don't know. There's an article in the New York Times a while back about how Target had almost over-targeted based on the data that they were collecting, providing pregnancy test for a woman that had ordered prenatal vitamins, and her dad got it first. So you can get a little bit creepy if you go too far into this personalization and targeting. You want to be enough to be helpful and create a personal experience, but you don't want to creep people out. So that's the balance.
Yeah, I think, and we're similarly, same thing. We want to have good suggestion engines, right, that maybe turn you on to a product without creeping you out that you might want to look at. But we're also creating an opt-in mechanism. So if you order the same shampoo from us every 30 days, our data will help us understand that, and then we'll just give you an opt-in saying, do you want to add that on to subscription? You'll just be charged for it. You order it approximately every 42 days, so we'll just send it to you every 42 days. So I think things like that, where it's more of an opt-in mechanism versus like a...
Definitely. Yeah.
One.
Yeah. And Binh, do you see any of that sort of coming up in Vietnam, and or are there any interesting insights you can share with people's buying behaviors over there and how they react to policy, private?
I doesn't have much comment about that matter, but I would want to raise a similar issue, but I think that is a kind of pain for the all the market in South Asia, including Vietnam. So, for example, many investor, many potential investor and partner, they come and approach and ask myself, how big the market is, and what is the behavior of the user, of the merchant, of the seller, what are the statistics. So I have to say that the statistic for the internet market in general and e-commerce market in particular is quite messy. I have to say, you have to use the word messy. There are many statistics, and none of those statistics is reliable. So, for example, some say, or if you look for it on the internet, some say the e-commerce market size of Vietnam like 2.2 billion US dollar. Some say 1 billion US dollar. Some say 700 million US dollar. And I myself more believe in 500 million US dollar. Things like that. So yeah, so that is interesting stuff. So if we talk about US market, if we talk about China market, if we talk about Japan market, the statistics are quite reliable. Right. But none of the statistics in South Asia are reliable, and I think that is a good chance for the market research company to deep dive into this.
Definitely, I think getting some extra data on the statistics within the Asian region would be very helpful for a lot, especially for the startups that are, or the individuals who are looking at starting within the e-commerce. Understanding market share and size would be amazing. So now a big question I know for a lot of people is logistics and operations, delivery, and Lex, because you are the one who has the most penetration in other regions. How do you see the challenges in delivery today? And also like RedMart, Roger, you guys are great at delivery here. I've only ordered once on RedMart, but very efficient, and I'm just amazed at how you do it. So it'd be interesting to share how you do it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think Singapore's a great place to learn about how to build your own logistics, right? I mean, it's a nice small place. It's not, for at least for us, I mean, and I think maybe Roger would feel the same way. It wasn't terribly hard to dream up a way to have more efficient delivery in Singapore than what was being offered by Singpost, DHL, and others. And I think that Singapore's, a market where delivery is getting so much better, and it benefits only the consumer, and that's wonderful. And in Singapore, we're doing things like going down to like an Uber style level where you can see your driver and your package. So instead of having to say, okay, it'll be there between 2 and 6 the same day, like you can really say like, it's going to be at my house at 3:05 in current traffic, right? So you're just home at between 3 and 3:15. Great. So in Singapore, I think we're making those strides, and it really, really benefits the consumer. In other markets, it's ridiculously challenging. So, we just opened up our warehouse and our logistics and our fulfillment center in Indonesia. Indonesia is not like Singapore, right? So, we're trying to focus on serving big urban areas. So in Bangkok and Jakarta, we'll offer same day and next day delivery, starting basically this week, and ramping that up. But, if you're talking about how to efficiently get a package to Papua, like that's a big challenge, right? And those people want to use e-commerce, and should benefit more actually from e-commerce than people in big cities. So I think, working on creating relationships with small players who are trying to move into e-commerce or serve, the logistics side of e-commerce in that way, is something that's beneficial. But I mean, it's a huge challenge outside of Singapore.
Yeah, I'd say that I agree. Singapore is an easy place to learn. It's small, densely populated, great infrastructure. But you still, like I mentioned kind of in my talk about, the best technology winning, you need to really take advantage of getting the most delivery density possible. That's really the key to making money on last mile delivery and also more efficient fulfillment. What we're doing, for example, we know when we have, show you the slots of delivery options that you have, we know the addresses of the people who've ordered before you, and we know your address, so then we can try to influence you or incentivize you to pick a slot that works better for us of where our truck is already going. You have to do things like this to really get as much density as you can. In other markets, we've recently visited Jakarta, for example. Obviously, the traffic is a huge issue. You have to come up with a different way of beating that traffic. And what we thought of possibly, could work is more of a hub and spoke model where you have multiple kind of cross-docking facilities throughout the city, and you deliver the package most of the way at night when there's no traffic, and then you can just go out from those little spaces on maybe smaller bikes, and do it that way. In our business, it's not a question. We started off trying to outsource last mile delivery. Back then, the offerings weren't that great from the third-party logistics providers. In our category, our average order size was about 35 kg. So they were not really happy about delivering, walking up, 4 flights of stairs and delivering that stuff. Or they were charging us a ton of money. So we had to do it ourselves. We got one van. My partner and I just delivered at night, and since then we've grown the fleet. And we've realized that, now we're going into fresh food by the end of the year, expanding our product selection, it's not even a question. I mean, the delivery has to be very well integrated with the fulfillment because you have to keep that cold chain now the whole way, especially in Singapore. It's so hot here.
Sure. Okay. So I'm just cautious of time.
Okay.
So do you want to give a quick answer, Binh, and then I want to end with one last question.
Right. Yeah. So I just quickly add the perspective from such big countries like Vietnam, unlike Singapore. Logistics is delivery is actually is the last procedure of every e-commerce transaction, and in such a big large country like Vietnam, so previously there is actually no real connection between the logistic industry and the e-commerce industry. So actually, on the app, on the website, is unable to calculate the shipping fee calculation lively. Cannot call delivery man on purchase of the buyer and things like that. And that pain has been around for since beginning. So our solution back in the last 2 years is we create what we call shipping gateway. To solve out for the e-commerce website, we connect to all the logistic company. We computerize them and provide the connection to all the e-commerce website. That was our solution.
Okay, great. So just to end, it'd be great to have one point as to how you see e-commerce or what is unique about e-commerce in Southeast Asia or Asia in your eyes. So yeah, just quickly, well, we have less than 1 minute left.
Every market will have its own model. There's no one perfect model for everybody. I think you have to figure out which market makes sense. Talking about delivery, don't assume that the only right delivery is delivery to a home, because you look at Taiwan and Japan model, there are a certain percentage of the people who take delivery not deliver to your home, actually deliver to 7-Eleven, deliver to some convenience store. So delivery is not necessary to your home or office.
I'd say that's probably true for many e-commerce products. For ours, like the basket size is so big and it's so heavy that doesn't really work. They need it usually delivered to their home. But I'd say, from what I've noticed, a very price-sensitive shopper here that probably doesn't value as much convenience as in maybe the West, where I'm from in the U.S. So you really got to be very sharp on your prices. Here in Southeast Asia, from what I've seen.
Talking about the difference of e-commerce market in South Asia, I would say that we all know that different ingredient and different formula will create the different food, right? So I would say, like in South Asia, a different infrastructure, different society infrastructures, like credit, credit card, and different user behavior. Let's say, for example, Southeast Asian people want to be safe, want to get the items on delivery, things like that. We create a different market, a totally different market, and it requires different solutions to solve it out.
Great.
Yeah, I kind of agree with everybody, but Hilok, especially, every market's different, and you've kind of got to be realistic about what the market demands versus what you think is going to work, and be willing to be flexible if you want to be in e-commerce out here. So
Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much for spending the time up here, and I'm sure there's going to be more questions out there. And if you guys want, perhaps you can speak to the panelists individually as well afterwards. So thank you.